is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
While Halliburton may be 2 for 3 so far and has a decent point gap in the points, he and many other of the top drivers in the championship have had an up and down season in the first 3 rounds. Consistency tends to play a part in championship runs, so you have to wonder at what point will someone step up and begin rifling off good finishes. Mid-Ohio will be a tough one to start that trend, considering we're running the tricky and lesser-used chicane layout. Will Kane fall victim to more self-made errors? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 4 of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Stefan Schlacker. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Ducky Beard. Steph, this is something of a home track for me, being from Ohio myself, so I love when we come here, but I rarely see this version of the circuit show up on schedules.
Yes, exactly. Situated in the rolling countryside just outside the town of Lexington in beautiful Ohio, Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course quickly became a highly recognized track in American motorsport. Opening its gates in 1962, this track started out with the layout we're using today, the chicane layout. Drivers must feel like on yet another Groundhog Day as they must face blind apexes and major elevation changes once again. Even though this track is so tight and challenging, or probably because of that, it is loved by nearly every driver to drive a lap in. So let us show you what today's drivers must face and take you on a lap around Mid-Ohio with our GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Stefan Schlacker in the GSRC SRF, so let's do a lap around Mid-Ohio. One thing you've always got to keep in mind with the Spec Racer is the lift throttle oversteer. That makes corners like turn 1 a little frightening because you're balancing the car on a razor's edge if you're getting the most out of it. Do not flirt with the inside curb or you'll likely find yourself turned the wrong way in the grass. Now, normally it's a long run to the keyhole, but the chicane layout breaks that up. It's a fast entry into here, and you'd be wise to not try and force a too-wide situation. It also makes the hairpin even longer. Considering the SRF understeers while on the power, it makes finding the throttle a game of patience. But if you wait too long, it's going to hurt down the backstretch. Drafting will allow someone to close on you, so don't add more fuel to the fire with a bad run. This eventually ends with China Beach, which will definitely be the most popular passing spot. What's interesting is because the track switches back into madness so quickly, defense around the outside is very possible. The crest here will exacerbate the understeer, and by now, you'll hopefully have sorted out any battles. You don't want to lose time fighting side by side here. Eventually, you reach the S's where you can go flat out, but it blends into the curved braking for the jump. It's not uncommon for drivers to dip a wheel off and lose it. The lack of power makes it easy to mash the throttle over the rise, and finally, you get a short break through Thunder Valley. Ideally, you want to bring the car as far to the right as you dare, just inches from the Arbco. You need to open up turn 11 as much as possible to help carry your momentum. But try your best to keep the car planted because you're smacked in the face with the carousel right afterwards. Most drivers are going to be aiming for a late apex around this long, long corner. And then from there, you just keep your foot to the floor and hopefully you've now finished a lap around Mid-Ohio. You see a lap up and around the hills here in Mid-Ohio, and if you enjoy watching these spec racers here in the virtual world, well, you can actually enjoy racing them in the real world. That's because this series is brought to you by Southeast Spec Racer. Southeast Spec Racer is a full-service Spec Racer Ford prep shop located in Daytona Beach, Florida. Offering a fleet of race-ready SRFs and the driver coaching to go with it, SSR is your one-stop shop for all things spec. They also offer transportation and storage, parts, and advice. You can find them at southeastspecracer.com. Definitely give them a look if you want to get involved in these cars in the real world. Now, taking a look at the championship so far, we mentioned 3 rounds into this thing, and Kane Halliburton leading by a handy 39 points. He jumps back up the lead after the win last week. Jason Perry, with that great finish, finds himself in second now. That's up 3 spots, but Jason has not shown up yet, so he'll probably tumble down the order after today. Steve Elson as well, getting a good finish on the podium to climb up to third. Daniel Sadro, because of that, somebody's got to fall downwards, and Sadro's the one here in the top 5 that loses a spot. Hendrik Lindhoff finding himself gaining a number of positions to reach the top 5. Now, what about the Spec 2 points, Stefan?
Well, after a miserable Brands Hatch, Alejandro Liero is still leading Spec 2 drivers here. Bob Kern, he is 27 points behind. Adam Bradshaw in third, 29 points, just 2 points between there. Also gaining a position there from Tom Gradwell. Ed Doherty doing the same, also gaining 1 position there over Tom Gradwell. Now in fourth, 46 points behind. And as said, Tom Gradwell losing 2 positions there from third to fifth. 48 points behind, but as you can see, it's still very, very tight here at the top of your Spec 2 class.
We'll have to keep an eye on those drivers around here. Could be some points gained with this difficult circuit. Now, speaking of the difficulties of today, well, let's give you a rundown of exactly what is entailed in this race itself. 4 out of 9 rounds so far, and they get 1 drop week because this is a shorter season. They have open setups on the cars. There's not a whole lot that you can do this Spec Racer, but the fuel has been limited compared to the real fuel cells. So that means that you can expect 1 scheduled pit stop in this 40-minute race. They have rationed the points from third place on down. That 100 for the win that you see there is then followed by 90 for second and 83 for third every time. They then from there on split it according to how many cars show up. They do get penalty points if they have enough incidents. 10, and you lose 2, and each 10 more, you lose 2 more points. So you got to keep a clean race out there, or else you start to hurt yourself in the championship. They also have a fast repair, which probably won't want to have to use around a track like this, especially with the tricky pit in and pit out. Steph, qualifying is underway, and right now Halliburton seems to at least be putting himself in a pretty good position with pole so far.
Yes, but Manenkov, he is really close there with Halliburton, just 7/100th of a second there between the two. And then Houdeludis, not really expecting that normally from him, but he's right now 4/10 away from your position 2 driver of Daniel Manenkov.
And glad to see Houdeludis return once again. He had to step away for some real-life obligations, so he probably will be out of the championship, but he could certainly throw a wrench in things, with him typically taking at least a win or 2 over the course of a season. I see Jerry McAreevy's got his demons sorted out in qualifying and has got some laps in, currently up to 4th. With about 7.5 minutes left to go, drivers have plenty of time. Now, this track, not usually in most cars known for being a draft track, but these Spec Racers tend to have a bit of an exaggerated effect on that. Do you think it's worth enough that you'll see drivers using it down the backstretch here in qualifying to try and get a little extra time, Steph?
It might be. Normally you could also do that out of turn 1, but with the chicane you can't do that anymore really, because it would just hold you up too much through the chicane. But I can see someone at least trying to do it down the backstretch.
So, here on the iRacing Esports Network, we hope you're enjoying the Weekend Warriors, being a new addition. But if you're just new to watching it here on IESN, well, maybe you should consider clicking on the big red subscribe button that we have up in the corner there. That makes sure that you won't miss a moment here on the iRacing Esports Network, where you can catch all the World Championship races as well as many other private leagues that are broadcast here on the air. So we continue to follow some of our top runners around. Antonio Reese currently sitting in 7th, but he's going to abandon this lap for now. Comes in to that pit entry that I mentioned. I've seen a few drivers botch that one over the years, Steph.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one because normally, if you don't have traffic, the last turn is actually faster than when you go on the racing line because you just can shoot straight off. But be very careful, that right-hander of the pit entry, it's very, very tricky because it's so tight, and then also the track kind of falls away from you. So kind of like your pedal kill bend of Mid-Ohio.
I like that description. Watching Lindhoff now, currently the number 8 car, taking a little slide into madness, but he catches it and keeps going. Might not be a fast lap, though. Driver who needs a good result as well because he missed last round, David Gaspers, who is a bit under the gun and, in fact, does not have the best of lap times right now, sitting in 5th. He improves and jumps up to 4th now with that 38 flat. That's still not... I'm used to seeing Gaspers on the front row. This seems like a bit of an underwhelming result so far for him.
Yes, but right now he's just 7/10 away from 1st. He's not gonna put in a fast lap here because he runs into some major traffic, as you can see on your screen. So yeah, he still has 5 minutes to go as everyone else has. So Gaspers, I think he's still gonna get there.
Right now our pole sitter in the Spec 2 is Alejandro Liero. Once again, he kind of was ruining a few mistakes at the last round, so the 282 as he comes across the line yet again. Let's see if he can improve on his lap. Nope, that one's not going to count for the 282, so he'll stay in 10th for now. He also still has plenty of time to try to get a few in. Now, I just saw him climb a little bit on that curb there in turn 1. This car not really known for liking curbs often. Is it okay to kind of glance that one, or do you really want to watch out for it?
No, it's really, you want to stay away from that curb because it's such a it's not your normal curb that has a little bit of a slope onto the top of it. It's just bam, it's right there. It's a real step, it's a real curb, so to speak, like you have on your normal street. So you really have to be careful. You don't want to brush it. If you really want to take it, you really have to take it. Otherwise, it is gonna throw you off and maybe even spin you out.
Sadro currently sitting there in 16th, the Midwest driver taking his run down the backstretch. As who is he giving a tow there as well, actually? It looks like Bob Kern, who's actually right behind him in qualifying as well, is trying to see if he can get a little bit of extra speed down towards China Beach. We ride on board with the New Yorker now, breaking into this popular passing spot on this track. And if I'm honest, I would guess the only really good passing spot around this track, because usually the only other good one is into the keyhole, Steph.
Yeah, the chicane makes... I think the chicane takes away the keyhole for an overtaking. If someone messes up the chicane, you might be able to do something into keyhole. But apart from that, China Beach is probably your only passing spot right now. Maybe we see something here into this turn here. Maybe into the last turn, but I really doubt it. Yeah,
the run from Thunder Valley to 11, certainly I would not be brave enough to try and do that one. As well, both of them are going to get held up by a little bit of traffic. Maybe I think Kern is able to slip through. That was Steve Elson who spun in the final corner and messed up a number of drivers' laps there at the end. Not intentionally so, but certainly caused a little bit of a headache there. De Boer also going for a spin into madness. Down to 2 minutes left here in the qualifying now. Your order still for the top 5 in Q is Halliburton leading. Manenkov has not been able to catch him with those 7 100s. Hootaluta still holds 3rd and Gaspers 4th, with Jerry McAreevy now down to 5th.
One thing I'm kind of surprised of right now is to not see Alejandro Liero higher up the field, because remembering last Brands Hatch, he was, I think, 5th he started, or 6th. Right now 10th, actually also over a second behind 1st, which is also not something we see very often. Only the top 7 are within a second of the pole position right now.
Yeah, Liero in the post-race interview did admit that it was a bit of a fluke lap because he had used the draft to try, as he spins out of the final corner there, use the draft to try and get a little bit of extra time there at Brands Hatch. So I guess it isn't working as well for him here today. And I think 10th is where we tend to try and where we tend to see him as we watch from onboard Daniel Manenkov. Let's actually ride on board to see how one of our fast drivers takes it through here, especially this chicane, because I would not consider myself a fast driver, so I couldn't tell you how to get through here well.
Yeah, the first part of the chicane is very fast. You can, as you saw there, you can take it very deep, like halfway through to the next apex, but then you have to really slow it down because that second part is really tight. I'm gonna be honest here, I tried to take it full throttle through the first 2 apexes when I tried to do the lap guide there. And yeah, I miserably found myself on the other side of the keyhole in the barrier.
So lesson learned there. He comes through China Beach now, up and over the tall crest, trying to find the power as the cart understeers. And then now through the rest of madness into the S's. Let's see how close he gets to the edge of the track, daring to use everything up into the jump. Ooh, he gives a lot of room off to the left side there.
Too much room.
Yeah, way too much room, and into the barrier. So that's the end of that lap. And the end of qualifying, because those 2 minutes you see there are just to finish your hot lap. You cannot start a new one. Who is going to be the first to finish theirs? I think Ian Wilson, well down the order in 33rd, going to be our first to cross the line. He's not going to improve. And then Edward Doherty and Jerry McAreevy working together and abandoning their laps.
Yeah, I think they tried to work together, but Gary then ran onto the back of Edward a bit too much, so they both abandoned their laps there.
Everybody giving up on this one. Antonio Reese as well. What about Bob Kern? He's down in 17th. This should be his last attempt here. A 139 flat currently for him, and a 39.5 will not do it.
Alejandro Liero is going into the pits, so that's also a no-go there.
Donald Fitterer is in 13th. He's going to elect to try to finish this one. He's got a 38.6 on the board for him. Comes out of that final turn, and he gets a 39 flat, so that's not going to do better. Adam Bradshaw could overtake Liero for the Spec 2 pole, and he's not able to improve either. A lot of drivers making a last-ditch effort, but we're not seeing anybody be able to do anything with it.
A lot of drivers trying to do the same that I always do, keep my qualifying laps to the very end of the session.
So that's going to be it. And this very hot day out on the track, at least on the surface of the track, proved to be a little bit difficult to try and get a faster time. Let's go through our starting order. Kane Halliburton gets it on the pole once again. Daniel Manenkov, wouldn't be surprised if we see him get a win at some point here this season. He'll start second. Dimitri Hudaludis is in P3, with row 2 being completed by David Gaspers. Jerry McAreevy starts in the 5th spot, with Stephen Elson rounded out row 3 and 6. Antonio Reese will start in 7th, with Chris Murakami starting 8th. Then in P9, you've got Fred Desai, and he'll be flanked in 10th by Alejandro Liero, the top of the Spec 2.
Henrik Lindhoff in the number 8 machine goes into 11th place there, just beside Adam Bradshaw, who we saw finishing his lap. Still in 12th position, Don Fitra, 3rd place, Spec 2, 13th overall on your grid. Gorka Ituarte in 14th, Stevie Ray in 15th, Daniel Satra 16th, Bob Kern is your 17th place driver, James Tibor in 18th, Miroslav Juricek in 19th, and Edward Doherty rounding out your top 20 on the grid.
21st goes to Tom Gradwell, followed by Matthew Staley in 22nd. Then it's Jeff Cantor in the 23rd spot. Joshua Borges-Bonkowski in 24th, followed by Andre Bertoni. Then it's Jeff Jacobson starting in 26th. Luis Vanders Luis in 27th, and John Dion in 28th. Mark Gehan will be in 29th at the drop of the green, followed by Wayne Palmer in 30th.
Paul Godden in 31st, Nick Carty in 32nd, first race for him if I remember correctly. Gary Walbot in 33rd, Ian Wilson 34th, Keith Walsh, he's your 35th driver on the grid, Richard Franco 36th, Filippo Negroni in 37th, Mats Joblom in 38th, and rounding out your field is Jim McGill in 39th.
Looks like Wendell Lowe, Paul Hickey not showing up here today, so 39 car field still pretty packed. Lap traffic, then, I have to ask. Do you think that's going to be a major issue for our drivers?
On this track, it might actually be very well, because as I said, it's incredibly tight, and with the off-cambered and elevation-changing corners we have here, driving on the outside, slowly speaking, it might actually be quite a problem for the drivers trying to lap or trying to give some space to the lapping car.
All right, we'll have to wait and see. Maybe pit stops will allow them to get out of the way of the lapping cars, as we do have one scheduled for today. Roof Pace car starts to lead them off. Now, in real life, under a rolling start, they would start on the backstretch, but here in iRacing, they will start here after the carousel, which could trip some of the drivers in the mid-pack up. Green flag comes out immediately, though. No waits, and so Kane Halliburton gets onto the power, as it's very close between himself and Manikov. In fact, it's causing a checkup behind them. David Gaspers and the likes of Huda Ludus are basically stuck behind our top two, but a bunch of steam on the outside for Daniel Manikov gets him the lead in turn one, and Kane Halliburton falling back to third, maybe even fourth here.
Wow, what a start from Kane Halliburton. Really not up to speed right now. We also had a bit of a 3-wide through turn one there. In the likes of Henrik Lindorf, who nearly gets tapped there by Fred Desai. But everything clean so far.
Yeah, surprisingly calm. Just one car off on the exit of the keyhole. But other than that, Daniel Manikov finds himself going from second place to the lead. Gaspers is giving chase. I maybe have spoke too soon about him being qualified in fourth. Jerry McAreevy did manage to overtake Halliburton for that third spot, who winds up now with fourth in that number 12 car. They're already single file now as they hit Madness the first time.
Yes, first side-by-side was between Bob Kern and Matthew Stanley, but even that has now cleared out as everyone goes for the first time over the tricky crest here, and everyone is able to make it perfect.
Now up to 11. The top two.
Oh, Chris Murakami!
Oh, and a bunch of cars wind up hitting him. He tries to come back on track way too early. Oh no, this is a horrible start. Let's take a look at the replay. Murakami tried to make a bit of a pass on Lindorf, and it did not go off. Looks like, was that Liero that got into him?
Yes, that was Liero. Liero and Murakami getting together once again on the pit entry.
Watch from onboard Churacek. He's the one that really clipped the side of the returning Murakami when he tried to return to the track. Obviously couldn't have known that that car was going to be there. Oh, and he had a bobble beforehand. That certainly didn't help him try to take avoidance maneuvers. So the number 84 with some severe damage. Bradshaw also involved in that. That means that Donald Fitterer is now our leader in the Spec 2 and the number 211 car. He's in 9th position and sitting very pretty with Doherty a number of cars behind.
Yes, Donald Fitterer, the real gainer here of this start. 4 positions up for him.
Oh, Gorka Iturrate finds himself off the track coming into Madness. Oh, wow, a ton of positions lost. Let's see here. I don't think he touched anybody.
The same mistake I did a few times in the practice, just taking too much speed through Daytona Beach and then spinning it out on the grass on the outside. Not able to hold his car tight.
All the way down to 21st, unfortunately. And poor Adam Bradshaw is involved in another incident, which sends him further down the field. This was in the S's, involved with Richard Franco. So Richard's the car ahead in the blue. Oh, he loses it in front of Adam. And Bradshaw just a completely innocent victim on this one.
There's no time there to react for Adam at all. innocent bystander there getting collected. Very unfortunate race for him so far.
Let's head back up to the front. We haven't checked on them in a while. You can see Gasper still trailing Manenkov, staying right behind him. Now, is he going to try and elect a pass? He ducks out to the outside, so no interest in saving fuel for the German. And he's got cars close behind, so if this doesn't work, they could find even more in the fray. He's going to have to go the long way around to the first apex, and I think he backs out of it.
Yes, but a 5-0!
That was a big shot to the back of Jerry McAreevy as Kane Halliburton got into him. Meanwhile, Hudaludis does not need asking twice, and he slips into third place past both of them.
I just want to say that this is a great 5-way train here for the lead, as that happened there as we go into replay. Yeah, trailing a bit too close, Jerry McAreevy backing up ever so slightly, and that was enough for Kane Halliburton to sadly collect.
And Kane did get on the text chat and type in a sorry. Obviously not an intentional move, but the 67 certainly came out the worse of the two of those involved. He's now down to 15th position. That's a big loss. So Hudaludis now up to third. Halliburton, how much damage does he have on the front of the car? That's a big question. Looking at it here from the camera angles that we've got, looks like the back actually has more than the front, maybe. It's relatively clean from this angle.
Yeah, the front seems to be 100% clean for me, but he has a little bit of a rear spoiler now on his car. So Kane Halliburton really lucky there with the damage on his car.
And David Gaspers up to the rear of Manenkov, but this time he gives him a little bit of a bump draft. Down towards the China Beach. He decides to lift a little bit before they get to the braking zone, so not challenging. Maybe he saw that gap start to happen between themselves and Hudaludis and decided better to try to push the gap further than lose it and battle each other.
Yes, exactly. That's the thought here of David Gaspers. Really want to make this only a 2-car battle when it comes to the checkered flag rather than a 4 or 5-car battle.
A little bit behind them. Don't forget about Steve Elson, who's been a major player so far this season. Had to climb his way back forward last round and currently sits in 5th with a gap up to Halliburton, but he's got some pressure from behind. That's Antonio Rees that you see in the car in the middle of those three. And then Henrik Lindhoff is the third one, who was part of that opening lap incident there in this part of the track that managed to get away scot-free and is still in 7th.
Yeah, it's a 3 packs right now here at the top, twice a 2-car battle, and then it's the 3 cars here for P5. If these guys start to work together, then they might be able to catch our leaders again, but they really have to start working together.
So we ride on board with the number 7 of Lindhoff, one of the teammates of Liero. Ooh, a little wide on the exit. Nope, just going to square it off. Nicely done by Henrik. Let's see if that helps him down the long, long backstretch. Just want to give a quick report that McAreevy still sits in 15th after his tumble down the order. Has not made great inroads since then. Ooh, a little bit of a lockup from Rees down into China Beach, but doesn't lose a position. Definitely falls off the back of Elson in the process.
Yes, but I think Antonio is a bit faster than Steve Elson through this.
Ooh, Gradwell's had a problem. This is in China Beach, and I think this was all on his own. Yep, you see the 299 just start to lose the rear of the car. No one touched him. And unfortunately had to wait patiently for everybody to get by before he can get going once again.
Yeah, China Beach, it doesn't look that difficult, but I can tell you it really is difficult as the lead is side by side there, Manenkov and Gaspers. As Gaspers drops out for me.
Yeah, but he's up in front of him now. It almost looked like Manenkov wanted to let him by. I don't think he had a slowdown.
No, he had a big wobble into the last turn there. all sideways. You're able to see it down. There we go.
Oh, yeah. Very wide, and Gasper says, thank you very much. I'm going to move myself to the front. So, does Manenkov fight back? Does he try to get back into the lead? As we come back live, he closes up behind the likes of Gaspers, but does not push him. That little mistake, though, and that swapping of positions has quickly allowed Hootaludis onto the rear of them. And don't forget our points leader, Kane Halliburton. He is now the 4th car in this train you see in the number 12.
Yeah, Hootaludis and Halliburton both were about 5/10 faster than David Gasper's last lap around, so they were catching them even without that mistake.
Big lockup into the jump for the likes of Manenkov.
Oh, Antonio Rees. Antonio Rees around in turn 10 here.
Who gets it going once again, but we've got the replay for the number 77.
That is
the crest,
probably...
he's already spinning.
Yeah, that was probably the world's slowest spin ever, as it takes him about the full turn to spin his car.
Yeah, you could, as we watched on board, you could see he starts counter steering pretty early in the corner, so he knew it was coming, but just could not save it. Well, that bumps him down to 15th as well, and finally gives Jerry McAreevy his first position gain since his incident, up to 14th. Another front runner finding problems, and to my surprise, I don't think any of them so far have been the chicane here.
No, it really is a bit surprising that none of the incidents so far were through the chicane, so everyone really knows how tricky this chicane is and rather takes it a bit easier than to risk it all.
So James Tabor down in 13th, just ahead of the likes of McAreevy, who's finally caught him. Tabor is at a bit of a line. That's Bob Kern, who's second in Spec 2, but 12th overall. He's not going to attempt to pass him, even though he got close there. And then that's Fred Desai, 11th overall. Spec 1 racer there on the number 76 in the front of them. Let's see how quickly McAreevy can make work of these three now that he's finally got to the train.
Last lap, let's see, he was about a second faster than all of them. Apart from Fred Desai, I have to say. But yeah, McAreevy, he should really make quick notice of these guys because he really needs to get back up there.
Certainly does. He's trying to use as much of the track as possible. You can see the extra speed that he carries, but nothing to do with it as they come to the carousel, still just plugged up behind the likes of Tabor. I almost wonder, is there enough of an opening behind McAreevy? We're getting close to that pit window. You think he should come in soon?
It really depends if he thinks he can overtake these 3-4 guys really quickly. If he can, then he should probably stay out, but if he thinks that he is not able to get past quickly, he has to decide that in this lap or next lap, maybe 2 laps from now. That is the latest point that I would decide that. Then he should really pit in, get that fresh car maybe even, and get that track position. He needs that clear track.
Tabor got to the back of Bob. Kern used the slipstream and is given the inside. Kern does not defend. So Tabor already up into 12th as long as he can make the corner, and McAreevy spies an opportunity. He sends it in deep. Has to keep out of Tabor, though, and it looked like he could have gotten that one, but Jerry is going to have to regroup and try again later.
Yes, Jerry is looking like he really wants to try to get past him really fast, but it's, as of right now, not working out.
So these drivers all still in a train together. I can report that it's the same story up with the top 4. And they're all riding behind David Gaspers very, very closely. This looks like a little bit of fuel saving and trickery to me.
Yeah, it kind of seems like you can do a little bit of fuel saving here because the refuel rate is so slow in these cars.
Oh, Stevie Ray is our first to take a scheduled stop, followed by Antonio Rees. He was right in front of Jerry McAreevy, so that's a few more positions that Jerry doesn't have to worry about.
Well, as we now know from last race, Stevie Ray is always pitting as soon as he can. So we now know that the fuel window is open.
Yep, he used it to pretty good effect last week at Brands Hatch to get himself a very good result just
Steve
off
Elson.
the podium.
Steve Elson way on the inside there through the grass on the backstretch. I don't know what he was doing there, but he took major liftoff on the shortcut after turn 1.
Let's take a watch here. Oh, what? This almost looks like a hardware failure or something. I'm surprised he didn't get a slowdown penalty for that.
Or maybe he was adjusting his fuel or something like that, looking at the black box and not where he was going.
He's very lucky. These cars don't like to bounce, and man, he went over an access road and all kinds of stuff there. Look at all the damage to the car, though. Hopefully that doesn't damage his straight line speed. Lindhoff has been hounding him for a little bit, and he's going to decide to pit.
Yeah, I think he was adjusting his fuel there, not really looking where he was going, and then suddenly realizing, oh, I'm on the grass.
It's one of those embarrassing things that can happen in sim racing. Now, Stevie Ray has come back out in 25th, so I'm guessing he'll come out behind Steve Elson, depending on what Steve does here with his spare car. If he takes repairs, the 56 is getting going again. There's our Texas driver, Stevie, who is on his way out, or on his way past the pit lane, but already Elson coming out of the exit in turn 1 and returns in 20th place. He is now our highest bidder. And we have an interesting disqualification that has happened. John Dion, who pitted not long ago, passed his pit stall and missed where it was. Oh, and is this a battle for the lead? Manenkov managing to get past Gaspers. But this happened into China Beach. It did indeed.
Yes. It started about halfway through the backstretch and carried on for 2 turns until he finally got past her.
Had to work hard for it. We're riding on board with the likes of Hootaludis. Got a front row view, and despite the robust defense, Manenkov is able to get by. Now, the point that I was making that was John Dion missed his pit stall, tried to reverse to it, but had gone too far, and was disqualified for going backwards on the course for too far.
Yeah, stuff like that can happen. Sometimes it quirks out a little bit because of how it calculates the laps.
I almost feel like you should be allowed to reverse in the pit lane at least. Just because so many drivers have wound up doing that over the years. There we see Fred Desai, the Frenchman, comes in, takes the spare car we just saw to get a fresh bodywork on that thing. He is going to come out just behind Stevie Ray. Actually behind Stevie Ray and just ahead of Antonio Reese, it looks like.
And David Gaspers not wanting to play with Daniel at all. He just pushes him, stays in the draft, saves some fuel. So apparently Daniel, he thinks that he can go quite a bit faster than the others.
We had a pass for 5th. Donald Fitterer just got by Henrik Lindhoff. And Fitterer, again, is currently our highest Spec 2 driver. Now, Lindhoff is not Spec 2, but that's still points gained for the number 211. Let's watch from on board. Just got himself a run. Look down to the inside, and the New Yorker makes it look easy.
Perfectly analyzed there, makes it look easy. I thought that Henrik was lifting there or something like that, letting Donald by, but no, Donald was just able to brake that much later.
Now nearly halfway through this race. So who among the top drivers are we going to see actually come in? Elson was one of them, but he had a big error coming down the backstretch that we think could have cost him time potentially. We'll see. Right now he's sitting the best of all the drivers who have pitted. As they come through the keyhole, Manenkov going way wide. In fact, very, very wide, and Gaspers knows it. He ducks his nose in immediately, but is this too soon of a move? He's not going to get the help of the draft at all.
Let's see what can happen here. Hoodeludis is staying still behind Daniel.
Ludus almost boxed in, really couldn't move himself to the inside, so Gasper is still on the attack down into China Beach, the long way around into Madness. There's not much grip way out there, so they're going to stay side by side, much like they did before. The track swings back right, and finally Gaspers gets the lead away yet again.
Kane Halliburton was thinking a tiny little bit there about overtaking Hoodeludis, but he then stayed back and enjoyed the show.
That was Gaspers locking up his brakes that we saw there on the screen. But here comes Hoodeludis, now looking to the inside of turn 11 on Daniel Manenkov. They're going to go side by side up to the carousel, and he loses out on that one. That was an unexpected move. Crossing the line one more time. I wonder if pit stops are coming soon for these drivers then. We've seen in the past, Steph, that drivers like to be ahead by the time they come into the pits. So maybe some of these drivers feeling now is go time.
Well, I think Hoodeludis is thinking exactly that. I want to be in front of Daniel. I want to be behind my teammate here and maybe do something with him after the pit stops, especially with them saving that little bit more fuel than Daniel.
He got a run off of the keyhole, and he's got his nose inside. So Daniel Manenkov can't shut the door this time as Dmitry Hoodeludis gets himself slightly ahead by the time they hit China Beach. Almost even under braking, with it swinging slightly back in favor of Manenkov, but through the corner, he can't carry it around the outside. Now Hoodeludis is up to the lead. That's 2 spots lost in recent laps for Daniel Manenkov. And behind it all, don't forget Kane Halliburton, our pole sitter. He is still in 4th and has been riding behind these drivers for quite some time.
Yeah, he has been. I don't think he has ever been in the lead since the start. So he was always behind there, saving fuel, staying back. Maybe it pays out for him. We'll have to see on the pit stops.
Absolutely. He's got 2 wins out of 3 so far this season. I'm sure he'd love to make it 3 for 4. That will solidly put him with a good lead up at the top of the championship fight. Haven't seen many drivers come in pit in the last few laps, though. It's been awful quiet on pit lane. So nobody really interested in doing a half and half strategy, it seems, today.
No, it really does seem like everyone wants to stay out as long as they can and maybe even save a little bit of fuel. So that kind of begs the question, is fuel saving a viable strategy here? And the answer is probably.
Let's jump back in the mid-pack. Adam Bradshaw currently leads a train of cars. That's Boris Bonkowski behind him, and a pass behind them, as well as Wayne Palmer being overtaken by the early pitter Stevie Ray, who now moves up into 19th, maybe, if he can keep the car on track. Wow, carried speed well through the first corner and made Wayne look like he was standing still. That's one more for the number 11. And behind them, we also have a slight battle between Nick Carty and Luis Vandersluis for 21st. So they run their way down the hill, down the rolling starting line towards China Beach. Nobody really getting a good enough run on one another to have a go. Next on Stevie Ray's list is Boris Bonkowski and P18. And something happened to Juracek for the second time this race. This one appears to be our first driver to have a serious issue with the chicane. Just spun himself out. Now, he didn't really hit anything bad. I wonder if it was already damaged and just he was struggling and decided he didn't want to have to deal with it for the rest of the day.
it kinda does seem so, because he spins it around into the infield and then just quits out.
Doherty from New York in and out from his pit stall. He was second place in the Spec 2. This is going to jump him down to, I believe, 5th within that Spec 2 championship. And Houdalutis is taking the lead away from Gaspers. The Greek driver is up to the front now. Let's take a look at that pass. With no championship to worry about, the number 27 might only be thinking wins this season.
Yeah, great pass there from Houdalutis, probably with a little bit of help from Gaspers lifting there on the inside and letting his teammate pass. But interesting now what will happen between the leaders. Is Houdalutis trying to pull away or do something else with his teammate?
And they're all going to stay out. Your new order this time across the line. Houdalutis leading, Gaspers second, Manenkov third, and Halliburton, the only one who stayed in the same position this whole time, is in fourth. Fastest lap of the race goes to Dmitry Houdalutis with that pass, as Manenkov goes a little bit wide through turn one, almost side by side now between himself and Halliburton, but Kane elects to give it up.
Kane saying, oh, that was mighty close there between Ian Wilson and Dimitris Houdalutis there into the keyhole.
Wilson, the lapped car, just trying to pull out of the way. We were right on board. We were on board with Halliburton. Now we're looking back from our leader, Houdalutis, at the train of cars. For the first time in a while, they get a little bit of a gap amongst each other.
Yeah, I think that was mainly due to the mistake of Manenkov in turn 1, as he is starting to close in already the gap between himself and Gaspers. So, as we watch these four fight, I'm looking at my timing and scoring. I see 35 seconds between Elson and the leader. Now, from cone to cone, he was just under 30 seconds. Now, that doesn't account all the time you will lose, but that means it looks like it actually might be relatively close once our leaders pit on where we see Steve Elson in this whole mix. He has been a little bit slower per lap, though, we're hearing. Yeah, you have to add like a second or two because of the pit entry, but I think they should be easily able to get past Elson.
Oh, we had a problem with Nick Carty, down in 23rd now after losing multiple positions. He was in a fight with the likes of Wayne Palmer. I think Palmer was a lap down potentially here, and you could see the 25, unfortunately, could not keep the car straight. Gets it going once again, but is way down the order. Speaking of Wayne Palmer, he also has pitted now. He was not a lapped car, correct myself here. 277, racing in that Spec 2 championship, comes to take his stop. That's still being led right now by Fitterer, who is also still in 5th place. Oh, got a battle happening between Tabor and McAreevy. McAreevy's been following him for a while, but not anymore. Jerry now up to 8th.
The car that you saw there on the outside, that's the lapped car of Gary Walbot, not of any concern to these two guys fighting away through madness here.
It's been a decent recovery for the number 67 car, but remember, he qualified in 5th, and he's only in 8th now, and he has yet to make his pit stop. Clock is ticking away fast. We're down to 12 minutes left on the clock as Halliburton now sets the fastest lap of the race at the tail of that train, and our Spec 2 leader is pitting.
Yes,
Donald Fitterer is in.
I think he might have slightly run out of fuel there at the end too, so he is pitting perfectly on his pit stall, waiting for the fuel. No tires in these cars. Oh, he actually was too far ahead as he just backed off a little bit.
That's not good, because don't forget Bob Kern is racing him for that lead, and Kern is also pitting this time. Fitterer out. Kern out just a little bit behind him, but is probably going to have gained a little time on the number 211. He's going to be split by the likes of Gorka Iturrate, a driver who has not had a clean race himself today.
Yes, nearly everyone who was to any concern of changing the Spec 2 lead pitted on this lap. So Donald Fitterer stays in the lead of your Spec 2 class.
Now, with Jerry McAreevy pitting, that puts him at the second highest car who has completed his pit stop. And he's got about 4.5 seconds up to Steve Elson. I'd say that's a pretty handy recovery for the 67, considering what we know about where Steve Elson will likely wind up. Now, we follow our leaders. Are they coming in this time? 1 is and 2 is. 2 are not.
Yeah, split strategy for the teammates. Hooded Ludus goes in, Gasper stays out. This will be interesting how this will play out for these 4 drivers. Especially for Kane Halliburton, what he will be able to do here.
Also joined by Lindhoff N, who pits from what was 4th. Lindhoff was in a battle with Fitterer. So where is Fitterer right now? He's down in 11th and coming up towards the carousel. Manenkov, you can see on the screen, and the likes of Hootaludis have exited their pits. It's still Manenkov leading Hootaludis.
There you can see how much time Fitterer lost there. Fitterer just over the start-finish line, and Hendrik Lindhoff, he's already halfway up to the chicane.
He is indeed ahead of Steve Elson, who slots back into 8th. Hendrik a ways behind the likes of Hootaludis, 11 seconds up the road. We see the number 8 car looking at a good finish here today. Oh, and Manenkov in a battle with Hootaludis right now.
Yes, Manenkov, they're still side by side there, Hootaludis and Manenkov. Maybe this is a little bit of strategy there to hold up Manenkov. So Gaspers only has to worry about Halliburton. Who knows? Anyway, great racing between the two.
And Gaspers comes in, but Halliburton is able to stay out 1 more lap. We mentioned he held behind all 3 cars for a long time. I'm pretty certain now the number 12 was waiting patiently to save some fuel.
Yeah, this is hammer time now for Kane Halliburton. He has to put out a very quick lap here. Oh, as the car ahead of him rolls! Adam Bradshaw just rolled his car through the chicane.
We'll have to get to that in a bit, because side-by-side action here between Manenkov and Hootaludis. And again, they are battling with Gaspers, who is already out way ahead of them. As through the outside of the chicane, going to switch to the inside of the keyhole, Daniel Manenkov. I wonder if Manenkov slowed both of them up with the fighting that they had. Hootaludis is not done with him yet, Steph. He's got a great run down to the inside of the backstretch.
Yeah, Hootaludis with a perfect exit there through the keyhole and already clears him before the braking zone of Daytona Beach. No, not quite. They're still side by side there. Manenkov braking later on the outside. Has he slowed down enough? Yes, he has, and they're still side by side.
Oh, this is costing them so much time. They are not going to be in the fight for the lead at this rate. Finally, the Greek driver gets it done, but a little bump from behind as Manenkov thought he maybe had a run, but not enough track to squeak through the S's.
Kane Halliburton once again drives past the pit lane.
We're going to take a look at the replay here. Is this the car going up and over? Yes, indeed. There we see the end result of Adam Bradshaw. Now, how did he get on his lid?
The second apex, he just rolls it over there. Apparently, there's a bit of a bump on that curb. I managed to not hit that ever in my practice sessions. So, yeah, Adam, thank you for showcasing that bump.
Well, the turtle turned that car into a turtle on his back, so he had to take a tow. Bad end for the Spec 2 racer. James DeBoer comes in to pit. We're just waiting on Kane Halliburton, who seems to be one of the lightest right foots we've seen in a while.
Yes, Kane Halliburton, as said, he didn't lead a single lap until his opponents pitted, and as you can see, he saved 2 laps worth of fuel right now, but I'm sure he has to come in at the end of this lap.
At Laguna Seca, we saw Halliburton give away what probably would have been an easy win, and he could have been a 3-time winner so far, but that one mistake seems to have really set his mind to it, because now as he comes in, he's saved a ton of fuel, and I'll be amazed if he doesn't come out ahead of Gaspers.
Yes, Gaspers is right now at turn 11 on the fast left-hander. Into the carousel he goes now. Kane Halliburton, he is stopping now on his pit stall, overshooting it quite a bit there.
Oh. And he had the first pit stall. He could have just peeled right out of there. So Gaspers now coming down the front stretch. Kane Halliburton starting to go now, trying to get his momentum up. Wasted opportunity for Kane Halliburton, because now it's going to be a side-by-side battle that lasts very short. Gaspers gets by before the chicane, but it is a battle to the line from here on out with less than 5 minutes to go.
Yes, without that little mistake, he might be side-by-side going into the chicane there, but I think Gaspers would have still got him ever so slightly through the chicane. So Kane Halliburton, at least he only has to fight Gaspers
and
very slow
Gaspers
there.
Slows down, yeah, and lets him through. Now, gear shift's usually not that big of an issue in these cars, but I wonder, did Gaspers short fuel it too much, maybe? Is he waiting behind Halliburton?
He was not really accelerating there once he shifted into 4th, so might as well just let him pass there and save some fuel.
All right, let's give you some stats. Gaspers stationary for 9.5 seconds. Halliburton for barely over 7. So in his stall, Halliburton was actually really fast with all the fuel that he saved. And this is faster than both Hudaludis and Manenkov, who are more average with just over 10 seconds each stationary. So Halliburton, clearly we knew he was saving, and he was saving the most, as now these guys have all caught up with one another. Hudaludis is on the back of Gaspers, and Manenkov trailing a little bit farther behind, but still within reach. And immediately taking the lead and then giving it back, that raises my eyebrow on Gaspers. I'm almost certain that he did not fuel enough in the car and is regretting it and having to save a little bit before he can attack again.
I'm honestly not so sure about that one. We only have like 3 laps to go, so maybe Gaspers thinks already about the end of the race and just wants to stay in second and have that last lap draft battle with Halliburton for the lead. So very interesting anyways.
Maybe it's Manenkov who didn't save enough fuel. He's continuing to drop back at a quick rate, and we know he can keep pace with these 3. Right on board with the Greek driver, who now ducks to the inside of Gaspers. That's another position, and that didn't seem like an error. It just looked like he pulled wide and let him through.
Yeah, this is getting weirder by the minute.
Oh, and it's getting shorter by the minute as well. I don't think we'll get white flag this time by. It's going to be a little close.
We should get by with one more time.
So Kane Halliburton leads once again, ahead of Dmitry Hudaludis now, with Gaspers slipping back to 3rd, and Manenkov a distant 1.5 seconds back in 4th. And I think, yes, 2 to go this time by Hudaludis on a charge, though. He just now set the fastest lap of the race.
Yes, they had 2 seconds spare there on the line. And this is now very interesting. It's all about Hoodeludus versus Kane Halliburton. As I think Gaspers will stay out of this.
And maybe that's why we're seeing Gaspers and Manenkov backing off, is because maybe they did not take into account this extra lap that we're getting. Manenkov very clearly saving fuel now. He is 2.5 seconds back. Even the lost draft shouldn't drop him that quickly on the likes of Halliburton, Hoodeludus, and Gaspers. We'll stay with this group all the way to the checkers. Coming through madness this time. Dimitri staying right within the tire tracks of Kane.
Gaspers nearly spinning it there over the crest, a bit too much throttle, but he saves it and stays with the 2.
Not very closely though. And if he is short on fuel, he's going to have to get closer to the draft to try and take advantage of it. They come up to turn 11, and then the carousel. Hoodeludus stalking Kane Halliburton, trying to deny him a third win.
Gaspers out of fuel.
Oh.
He is... Oh, no, wait, he's really saving fuel now. He was on the clutch there.
Very, very slow. I think he is out. He's coasting now and being passed by Daniel Manenkov, who's going to move himself into third. Let's go back to the lead. Halliburton still has Hoodeludus right behind him. Could that be in front soon? He's taking a look into the chicane. So hard to pass here. A lot of inside curve on the first part for Halliburton, but he holds onto it. It switches back to the right now into the keyhole. And this is going to be the critical moment. The run down to China Beach. Dimitri is the one behind, pulling the draft. And Halliburton knows it. He ducks to the inside, down the backstretch, tries to cover off the way to China Beach. He pulls all the way to the grass, forces Dimitri to take the long way around to this first apex. Could he manage to do this overtake the hard way? Into the corner. Halliburton goes deeper, but he slides the car. Oh, and they come together! Halliburton spins around, but Dimitri Hoodeludus manages to keep going. That promotes Daniel Manenkov up into second place. Hoodeludus, though, is too damaged. Hoodeludus' car can't continue, as Daniel Manenkov suddenly finds himself in the lead after being short on fuel. Can he make it to the line? Who is going to win this race? Oh my goodness!
What the last 2 laps there, Daniel Manenkov. Only a few corners to go. Let's see if he can make it on fuel. No, he is stuttering. He's stuttering now too.
Hoodeludus is still behind him in second, but he's very slow right now. Daniel Manenkov sliding the car, trying to save as much fuel as he can. It comes to the line, barely just puttering across. Daniel Manenkov is going to win this one. Oh my goodness. Hoodeludus limps the car to second place. Henrik Lindhoff manages to get third. Jerry McAreevy probably did not expect a 4th place here today. He jumps up 3 spots in 1 lap. 5th place, excuse me. Elson is going to get 4th. Fitterer, our winner in the Spec 2, finishes in 6th overall. That's a huge haul of points. Let's take a look at the replay here of the incident. And you'll see Halliburton's rear just start to go, and it snaps on him. Oh. That was just a plain bad break for Hoodeludus, I'd say, Steph.
Yes, Hoodeludus, he perfectly got his car slowed down. Kane wanted a bit too much, a bit too fast there, and then it just snaps on him. And yeah, Hoodeludus, sadly, the innocent bystander there.
Wow, what a shame. You could see as soon as he got into the grass, he was steering that car all the way to the right. And there was just no help in it. This is on Halliburton. And he knows the car is going. He's trying frantically, sawing at the wheel, and around it goes into the car. He sees the likes of Manenkov go by and then has to wait for, was that Elson coming through, I think, in the 56 there. But regardless, that's going to finish the race, but not our broadcast. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews on screen. Before that, you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. just watched round 4 here in the Weekend Warriors at Mid-Ohio, and it was a wild ending. Please, if you didn't watch that, go back and see the last few laps. Daniel Mannenkov won, but it was not for sure until we got all the way to the checkers. He was followed by a very damaged Dimitri Hudaludis, who literally had to limp the car across the line. Henrik Lindoff finds himself getting third from starting 11th on the grid. Steven Elson, who had a bit of a weird moment partway through the race on the backstretch, still got 4th place, and Jerry McAreevy, who got turned around and lost tons of spots after getting a bump from behind, still comes back to 5th. Donald Fitterer from 13th on the grid to 6th, and the winner of the Spec 2. He's going to gain a lot of points for that one. He'll be ahead of Daniel Sadro, who finishes in 7th, with Gorka Iturrate coming home in 8th. David Gaspers, in the end, clutched nearly the whole final lap around with a very slow last lap. He gets 9th in the end, and Stevie Ray winds up with the top 10.
Edward Doherty, P11 overall, P2 in your Spec 2 class, closely followed by Bob Kern, 3rd place in Spec 2 or 12th place overall. Fred Desai finishes 13th, a full 32 seconds behind your leader Antonio Rice, just 3/10 behind Fred Desai in 14th. Matthew Stanley 15th, Jeff Cantor, that's your 4th place finisher in Spec 2 in 17th. Andres Bertoni is in 18th, Alejandro Liero 19th, so once again not a very good outcome there for Liero in this race. Paul Gordon, your 20th driver on the finish.
Jeff Jacobson takes 21st, followed by Joshua Borges-Bonkowski in 22nd. Then it's Nick Carty coming home 23rd after qualifying 32nd. Quite a few positions climbed up for Nick. Richard Franco finishes 24th, with Wayne Palmer coming home in 25th. Then it's Mark Gehan in the 26th spot. Chris Murakami hits a bad race for the number 01. He started in 8th. He finishes in 27th, the last on the lead lap. And he's followed by the driver that we thought was going to win this. Kane Halliburton winds up 28th, the first car lap down. He had to DNF there in the end. Couldn't cross the line. Tom Gradwell comes home 29th, with Jim McGill finishing 30th.
Louis Van Looys in 31st, Gary Walbot in 32nd, Ian Wilson finishes in 33rd, 34th goes to Adam Brancho, who totaled his car. Filippo Negroni in 35th, Mats Sjöblom, the first car not being able to finish the race, in 36th. Keith Walsh 37th, Miroslav Juricek in 38th, and John Dean, the last car to take the green flag, in 39th, 17 laps down.
And we have a few cars, or a few drivers that we want to talk to. First up is our 2nd place finisher, Dimitri Hudaludis, who is fighting for the win on the final lap. Dimitri, give us your thoughts on the incident there with Kane.
Hello guys, it has been a relatively long time. First of all, it feels very good to be back. It was a really enjoyable race, and but the weather conditions were very sketchy. I don't know, many of us had many problems, either with understeer or oversteer or everything. It was an unfortunate incident. It was the last lap. Nobody was going to give any room. I tried to take a conservative approach, and if anyone has ever taken that corner too wide in the Spec Racer, he knows that it's really difficult to make it work, especially after 40 laps of fighting and back and forth.
Yeah, and unfortunately ran into you then. So talk to us about the run to the pit stops themselves, the first part of the race. It seemed like you were kind of among that top group and just hanging out, and then suddenly you started gaining position after position. Was that part of the plan? Did you mean that charge right before the pit stops?
Yeah, starting I took a conservative approach because I'm a little rusty yet, and I didn't feel very confident with the car. But after seeing that I was lifting a lot without having the intention to fuel save, I thought, let's go a little bit more aggressively. Let's fight through it, and it worked out. The pit stop was, I had a little slide in that corner, and I said, okay, the pit entrance is in front of us. Let's do it now. And I just took my pit stop there.
Now, we were sad to see you missing for so many weeks, and glad that you're back. Is this back for good? Are you going to compete for the rest of the season?
Yeah, as long as anything how can I say that? Not planned comes up, I think I will be here for sure every Sunday.
Oh, we love to see you giving a challenge to these fast drivers. Congratulations on second today, Dimitri, on your return.
Thank you, Joe. Happy to be back. See ya.
That was the number 27 finishing second place today. Third place behind him was Hendrik Lindoff, and that is Stefan Schlacker going to be talking to him.
Yes, Hendrik Lindoff, welcome to the podium. I think it's it's for sure the first one in this season. I think it's your first one since you entered the series. I might be wrong there, but anyway, very lucky and a very, very, very quiet race from you. How did it feel to you in these tricky conditions?
It felt pretty good, I think. Well, it is my first podium in this series. I entered this series. This is my first season doing this, so it's really fun. But no, the race overall was just I tried to play it pretty smart today. Try to use the slipstream of both Steven Elson and Donald Fitter, and just keep behind those guys because I knew they were maybe half a second faster than me all around, and I wouldn't be able to go ahead and basically have the same pace. So that worked out well, and then in the pit stop, I guess I made a better pit stop and a better outlap and in-lap, so I got ahead of them both. So and in the end, something happened in the front. I'm not sure, but we ended up in third, and I'm really happy for that.
I always keep thinking that you're already last season in this series, but no, you just joined this season. So yeah, congrats on your first podium. Now going forward to Belle Isle, the first track in 3 weeks where we won't have any blind apexes or any major elevation change. So how are you looking forward to Belle Isle?
It's not my favorite, but I think we can make it work, you know. It seems to have been working pretty well in the last races, even though I didn't really like the track. So I think, yeah, it can be quite fun, really. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, every racing in this car is fun. Well, everyone, that was Hendrik Lindoff, your third place finisher, first time on the podium, and Joe Peak, meanwhile, is catching up with Kane Halliburton.
Yes, Kane, unfortunate to see you down in 28th after leading part of this race, at least. Now, we asked Dimitri his thoughts on the incident, so it's only fair that we get your perspective.
Yeah, first and foremost, I want to apologize to Dimmy and Jerry. They both had really good pace and was looking to try and get a win today, and I ruined that. But as for the incident with Dimmy, you know, I just went in a little bit too hot, got snapped oversteer, and unfortunately damaged his car quite a lot.
Yeah, it certainly caused us a lot of excitement for us to call at the end, though. Now, were you attempting to save as much fuel as possible back there in fourth for the first half of the race? Because we were kind of keeping half an eye on you at the tail of that train.
It wasn't my intention, but because the conditions were so inconsistent, I decided to take it easy, and the result of that was saving a lot of fuel.
Well, unfortunately, seemed to still bring you out alongside and then behind Gaspers. Now, I noticed that you carry the Jamaican flag on your car, and you hail from the UK&I Club. Do you have roots over in Jamaica?
Yep. A lot of my family is from the Caribbean, Jamaica and Grenada, so that's what I rep a lot of the time.
That's fantastic to get that representation out here in the racing world. So it's 2 wins in 4 races. Unfortunately, it couldn't be 3 today. What do you think about Belle Isle? Can you get one in out there in the tight confines of Detroit?
I don't have much experience there, but judging from my pace so far, I think I should be able to get top 5 at least. If I don't crash anyone, at least.
It's always the first goal, I guess. Again, commiserations on today's finish. We look forward to seeing you try and fight with the top guys a week from now.
Thank you.
That was Kane Halliburton, 28th today after potentially fighting for the win. But a winner over in the Spec 2 is Donald Fitterer. Steffens caught up with him.
Yes, from a very, very, very disappointed Kane Halliburton over to probably a very, very, very happy Donald Fitterer there. Not only the winner, but also 6th place overall there, which I think even is his best finish in the series so far. So, Donald, talk us through especially your first stint as you saw a bit of action there.
Well, the pace was at a point where it was very difficult to pass, so I was just trying to hold on and keep a good pace and don't make any mistakes. And Wilhelm, I believe, I passed him a couple, Henrik and I were fighting back and forth a little bit, and then I went into my pit stop and I went a little bit too far, so I lost some time there.
Yeah, very unfortunate pit stop there for you. Might have been able to pick up a little bit more there. But yeah, second stint was a bit of the quieter sort for you. So just lapping down your laps, did you have any problems with the weather today?
No, I thought it worked really well with the setup I had, and I knew Jerry was faster than I was, so I just stayed behind him and tried to maintain a pace where I could stay in this draft.
Well, coming off this win now in Spec 2, how are you looking forward to Belle Isle? Quite a different track from here.
That's going to take a lot of practice because Belle Isle is one of those places where you need to be very consistent. You don't need to be the fastest, but boy, don't hit a wall because your race is over.
Now, and also with this car not liking bumps all too much, should be a very interesting race to race and spectate. But yeah, anyway, that was Donald Fitterer, your 6th place finisher here today. And I have to say, we saw some really action-packed 40 minutes here today.
I agree. And I have a feeling that we're going to see more of that final lap later on, as that was an incredible just few moments in racing. I'm trying to find any other time that we've seen such a chaotic end where we had no idea who was going to wind up winning the race all the way to the checkers. But anyways, we want to thank the likes of Stevie Ray for organizing the Weekend Warriors, and of course to the sponsor this season, Southeast Spec Racer, for coming on board and making sure that we get this on air, and well, for helping the racing community down there in Florida and all over. Big thank you to iRacing for bringing us on to the IESN. Once again, we want to encourage you to subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network so that you can catch more of wild races like this one. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. You can find them listed on your screen. Additional thanks go to Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Steph, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. As we mentioned, the next race is going over to Michigan, to Detroit. That'll be Sunday, February 3rd at 2:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.